To order. This is a regular meeting for the Parish Council, July 27, 2017. Would everyone please stand, please? Mr. Bubba, did you have someone to review the invitation?
Yes, I do. I have Ronald Harris.
One of your relatives?
Well, yes.
I would just, come on up to the mic. Mr. Harris.
That's Mr. Mo Harris.
All right.
Our Heavenly Father, we come to you right now. We thank you, Father, for everything that you do for us. We thank you for your love, your mercy, and your grace, Father. We thank you for this beautiful day you've given us, Father. Father, I ask that you pray for our nation, Father, as we desperately need your help, Father. Pray for our president and his Congress and the ones that work under him, Father, that they will bring this nation back to where it needs to be. Father, I thank you for your healing powers, Father, as you touched my body just a month ago, and then my granddaughter as well, Father, as she's cancer-free right now. You are the great healer, Father. There's no one greater. I ask that you bless this council as they do their work through you, Father. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. King, please pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We got everything on.
Ms. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. King.
Yeah, here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Talbert.
Here.
Mr. Lobel.
Here.
Mr. Avery.
Here.
Mr. Mack.
Here.
Mr. Ard.
Here.
Mr. Wascom.
Here.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Here. I would like to take this time to remind everyone, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or at least put it on mute for us. And this is a public meeting, so if any of the items we're discussing, if you anyone wants the public wants to come forward and discuss these, I got it. Wanted to talk about the issue, just come forward, give your name and address, and we'll recognize you to speak. Item 7 is presentations. Do you have any presentations this week?
I think so.
Item 8 is the audit presentation by John Murray, auditor from Director of Laporte CPAs and Business Advisors. Mr. Murray? I want to say he already gave a presentation to the Finance Committee, and we found his presentation ruled in favor of his the audit. So anyway, go ahead.
So our firm, we did an audit for the year ended December 31st, 2016, and our opinion on the Parish Council was an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion on y'all's financial statement. Our opinion on the parish as a whole was an adverse opinion because y'all don't include y'all's rec districts, fire districts, and so forth in y'all's financial statement. And so that was kind of the opinion. And we also, in the Finance Committee, kind of went through some financials and pretty much that, I guess. Is there anything else you want to go over? Or?
No, sir. I just wanted to give the rest of the council the
All right.
opportunity to ask if you had any questions.
It was a really good audit. I think we had they did a really good job this year, last year, given everything.
Yeah.
I think we had a finding with respect to percentages at the end of the year. And if y'all remember, we waited till December to try to amend the budget. And because of revenue being pushed back and some other things, we missed a couple items, but it was basically the stuff that they found was stuff that was almost all flood related. So,
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
I appreciate you staying around. Item 8 is the adoption of the minutes of the July 13th, 2017 regular meeting. Any discussion? Any discussion from the audience? If not, I need a motion to adopt the minutes. Motion by Mr. Ard, second by Mr. King. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item 9, discuss the verbiage and intent of the Livingston Parish noise ordinance. You
I think the gentleman that's going to come speak on that tonight is not going to make it. So
all right, so item 10, Parish President's report.
Just real quick, just a little information kind of thing. As most of you are aware, the parish has been allocated roughly $68 million from the governor, from FEMA actually through the governor's office for us due to Hurricane Gustav and Ike, which is about $6 million, and the other $61 to $62 million from the great flood that we had in August of last year. We've got a lot of good projects that I think will be approved by FEMA, but I didn't want to mislead anyone, so I wanted to state for the record, this is months-long process, possibly years. But it's great news for Livingston Parish and the people of Livingston Parish, because we are going to be able to do some great projects across this parish to relieve some flooding. We also have been awarded some additional dollars that we'll be able to start over in the Tickfall from the south all the way up. That should get started in the near future, the Natalbany and one of the, I think the Middle Coyell. So there's good news for the people of Livingston Parish regarding finally getting some things done for flooding, which hopefully, and I want to stress this point, we have in November, Gravity Drainage District 9 and 10 will be voting on setting up their districts with some taxes. This is not to be confused with not doing that. They need to do that to be able to continue to keep the maintenance and all on the ditches and laterals and things like that. So that is still greatly needed. But this will go a long way in diminishing and hopefully eliminating some of the flooding that this parish has always had to endure. Now, obviously, when it comes to something like what we had in August, you never can be prepared for that. But a typical flood that the parish has received in the past, this will make a big difference in that. I'm convinced. So. With that, I just think it's great news. Wanted to share it with y'all. We will be getting into some specific. Is he back there?
Yes.
Into some specific projects as time moves on, and we do get them approved through FEMA. But they have to go to GOSEP, then to FEMA to be approved back. And you don't start the projects, and the money's not actually allocated until you're issued the notice of to proceed. So with that, we will continue to update you as we move forward with that. Is he happy or smiling or frowning?
He's smiling.
Is he smiling?
But you can't really tell. They're all
It's
the
hard to
same.
know. Thank you, counsel.
Not a whole lot of
Just want to make you
difference
aware of
there.
that.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mr.
Item 11, speak of the devil, Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Mr. Harrell, do you have anything to report, say?
You gonna make him think we don't
You
like
gonna,
you.
you gonna handle that trash pickup deal, Mark?
I will. I wasn't gonna be here, but I decided to come tonight. As you know, we're trying to wrap up the debris. It's been a nightmare. And we put the word out that everything should have been on the street by the 17th. That's the day we started back up. And we must be finished by the 12th of August. What's happening is the contractors are going out, they're going down so many streets, roads, lanes, whatever, and pick up, and they leave and go to the next ones. People are coming back, throwing more stuff out. I'm just going to tell you, on the 13th, start expecting some calls. We cannot pick up everything because they've thrown it out on the street the last few days. There's no way to do it. They're doing their best, they're going back, they're grabbing what they can, but I'm trying not to stop them from their cycle. If it's large piles, they had to go back a couple of times and pick up complete demos. We'll do that because it's huge. But something that they can put in their garbage container and work out in 4 or 5, 6 weeks, they need to do that. So just giving you a heads up on that. And that's it. I just want to tell you, I love all of you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell.
So Mark, in other words, if you have a pile in front of your house on the 13th, that's your responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
100%.
So if it's out on the road right now, then we'll pick it up there.
Well,
Not
Not necessarily, because
If they've already passed you in the last 10 days, they're not coming back.
unless you,
I
now,
seen a couple piles on.
there's a few exceptions we found out. The only reason I found out, they hired a Trico to come demo a home, and they were waiting on the Restore Louisiana folks to give the final inspection. Couldn't tear it down until then, so I've had to get on the phone and pump them up and make them come out and clear them. So there's been about 10 more homes that's demoed after we passed, but it wasn't their fault. So we're going back to get those, but that's it.
Yeah, I've been seeing some of those.
Right. Thank y'all.
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Item 12, we're now entering into a public hearing. If anyone in the audience has anything to comment on this, they just step forward and recognize you. This is a public hearing and adoption of LP ordinance number 17-26, rescind Livingston Parish number 17-21 West Karen Street right-of-way revocation. Ms. Sandy, would you read by title?
This is an ordinance rescinding ordinance 17-21 of the Parish of Livingston and adopted June 8, 2017, concerning the revocation of a 40-foot right-of-way between lots 28 and 38 of Wildwood subdivision, second plat.
Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the council? Public hearing is now closed. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wascom, second by Mr. King. Ms. Sandy, would you call the vote, please?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mr. Averett?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Girlingham?
Yes. Item 13, we're now entering a public hearing. This is a public hearing for an adoption of Livingston Parish Ordinance Number 17-27, servitude revocation, Adrian Jenkins and Carolyn Road. Ms. Sandy, would you read by title?
This is an ordinance revoking a certain 40-foot servitude of access and a certain 60-foot servitude of access located in section 41 T8S R3E Greensburg Land District, Livingston Parish, Louisiana, in favor of the landowner being particularly described herein.
Any discussion from the audience? Any discussion from the council? Public hearing is now closed. I need a motion to accept. Motion by Mr. Averett, second by Mr. Lovell. Ms. Sandy, would you call the vote?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mr. Averett?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yep.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Girlingham?
Yes. Item 14, request for waivers intended for the allowance of permitting due to the restrictions of LP Ordinance Number 17-22, Section 13-46.1, prohibitions and restrictions of use for mobile manufactured homes to be placed in the named subdivision for the intent of on-site custom-built single-family home. This is basically people asking for a waiver to move mobile home in a neighborhood that either allows mobile homes in, or that's our job to see which one. We have two, I think two in, one in Mr. Harris's district, two in Mr. Averett's, and two in Mr. Lovell's. I'm gonna go ahead and read these off. District 5, Ryan Whittington. That's Mr. Bubba Harris's district. Whittington Lands, 24449 Jesse Street, Denham Springs, Louisiana, 70726. Dustin Laurent, District 6, Mr. Averett's district. Janmar Place, 23041 Christie Lane, Denham Springs, Louisiana, 70726. Lily Pierce, that's also Mr. Averett's district. It's also in Janmar Place, 23040 Christie Lane, Denham Springs, Louisiana, 70726. Amanda McAllister, and that's Mr. Lovell's district. Country Estates, 13945 Andrea Street, Livingston, Louisiana, 70754. And James and Pamela Wilson, also Mr. Lovell's district, Country Estates, 19335 Andrea Street, Livingston, Louisiana, 70754. Any discussion from the audience? Any further discussion from the council? If not, I need a motion to accept the waiver on these 2, 3, 4, 5.
Unlawful.
Motion by Mr. Harris. Second by Mr. Lovell. Sandy, would you call the vote?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mr. Averett?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Mr. Girlingham?
Yes. Item 15, correct the official spelling of Rue de Fleur Road and Rue de Fleur Road. They misplaced the U and the E on Fleur. And Rue de Vire, I guess it is.
Wow.
Rue de Voir.
Wow.
Rue de Voir Road.
Yeah.
Excuse me, my French isn't so good. Pardon my French. And to Rue de Voir also, bless you, misplaced the I and the O in Voir. On the Grant Bankston Road list as registered and recorded upon the adoption of Livingston Parish Ordinance Number 02-478 at the regular meeting of the Livingston Parish Council on September 30th, 2002. So I just went ahead and explained it for you, Mr. Talbert, but basically they need to correct some misspelled roads.
That's it.
Any discussion from the audience? Any discussion from the council? If not, I need a motion to change this incorrect spelling. Motion by Mr. Ard. Second by Mr. Harris. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Item 16, District Attorney Report. We apparently have none.
Mr. Moody's running late today. He's probably not going to make it before.
He's running out. I don't think he's going to make it.
Not going to make
we
it.
had anything in it.
Item 17, Committee Reports. Mr. Mack.
But yeah, we have a meeting August the 3rd at, Sandy, what time did we set that meeting up for?
6.
6.
All right.
6.
Six.
6 o'clock, next Thursday.
Awesome.
Everybody's invited. Everybody's invited.
Oh, Talbot.
Finance Committee met today, and, we received the audit. We passed out some information to the members of the committee with respect to the cost of, traffic calming electronic signs for them to review. So we discuss at the next meeting. That's about it.
Item 18, sometimes the scariest item on the agenda, the councilman comments.
Addendum.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. We'll do the item 18, then we'll go to the addendum.
Okay.
Any councilman comments?
Only comments I got is on the LP ordinance on the mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we need to work on. We're making people wait 2 or 3 weeks to get a permit. We got to get a list together. We got to do something where they're not waiting the whole time. It's crazy to have to wait 2 or 3 weeks just on a permit to move a mobile home in, something that you're ready for. The only holdup is the permit. So I think it's something we're gonna have to work on and fix and get a list over to the permit office. Whatever we're gonna have to do is what we're gonna have to do. Ride around. Whatever it takes. That's all I got.
Anything else?
Agreed.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
Real
just
quick.
go to the addendum.
Go ahead.
But you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Councilman comments.
Well, last meeting, we gave a presentation about the ham radio club. And I want you to know that we all met at Mr. Mark Harrell's office this past Thursday. We had 23 people show up excited about joining the ham radio club, and they joined, I believe, and it's fantastic turnout for the first club. So again, I'd like to ask anyone who's watching on TV and in the parish, if you're interested in joining the Livingston Office of Homeland Security Amateur Radio Club, otherwise known as the Livingston Ham Radio Club, please, it's the 3rd Thursday of every month. You're welcome to come. First, great number of people who go through the class and get their ham license get a free radio. Just want you to know that. It was a great turnout. And I don't know if Mark wants me to say this or not, but through some volunteers climbing up the tower and installing some antennas, we were able to get volunteer labor. They took our our antenna up and mounted it 360 feet up and coax and the cables up. So they're gonna set a repeater in a couple of weeks, and we'll be live and having a ham radio repeater operate probably by the next 2 meetings. So that's really good news. Thanks for all your work on that, Mark.
Okay, that was the biggest, one of the many complications during the flood, just no communications, man. We've become so used to this. When this goes down, we're in trouble. The marine radios and such as that came in handy.
You climb that tower, Tom?
Yeah, I did. I was blindfolded though, Tracy.
Didn't know how.
You didn't know what it looked like when you got up there.
One hand behind his back.
Did you climb the tower, Mr. Harrell?
No,
Just
Not all the way up to 720.
oh, I got you.
But I got around 600,
Nah.
but I didn't climb. I'm on this stuff.
Oh, I got you. I got you. All right, item A1 is the addendum. Amend section 13-56, building lines to define the term structure, instruction of ordinance. Mr. Talbot.
We've had there seems to be some confusion on setbacks.
Hey, Chris.
He did make it.
He did. We just said you were gonna make it.
Just in time.
Hey, you're buying.
We had some confusion as to what, the setback is 5 foot. And currently, the building department is enforcing a 5 foot setback from the slab to the property line, which allows for the even overhang to overhang the setback, which depending on the eve width, could get houses as close as 6 foot apart. You know, so we're looking to clarify, either, what is the building line is part of this deal. Now, I do have a question for Chris, since he's here. We're going to make this introduction to kind of define what the structure is, but there might be a better way to do it in doing it at the planning stage with setbacks with respect to lot size to create more space. So my question is, if we make the introduction with the intent of creating a fixed amount of space between houses, and we found out that we're going to amend section 13, but not necessarily 56, and we need to do it in a different area, is that amendment to this introduction going to be sufficient, or would we have to kill this and start over?
Well, I've always said you can tweak minor things. As long as the public knows that you're taking this up and this is part of what's going to be considered.
Well, the intent is
to of a public hearing, and then you switch it to something else. But so you're probably pretty good shape with that.
The intent is to create a definition or create a fixed amount of space between the houses. And there's just been since the addendum came out, there's been some concerns by developers and everything that they're in the planning stages and subdivisions, or they've got something, in the works right now that's already been through planning, and they're they would like to see us address this at the planning level instead of at the permitting level, so that they don't get trapped into maybe having 100 subdivision, 100 house development that's already been through planning, and then we throw them a curveball, at the permitting situation. So, the intent was not to hurt a developer or a contractor. It was just to clarify something. So actually, I'm going to meet with a couple guys next weekend, and if the committee meeting's so full already, I would bring it before the committee. But I think that deal, based on what Shane's got, is going to be pretty occupied. And if we get something figured out before that, we might bring it to committee and talk about it. But basically what it is, it's still going to be relative to create the distance between the houses. We just might do it at the planning stage instead of the permitting stage. So, but I'd still like to get the introduction to get it rolling.
Okay, but what's to be lost? Introduce it, and if it can be kind of wedged into an ordinance that's very close to something that you're trying to do, then it's no problem. Just could be passed. Otherwise, you just have to lay it over and
start over.
Yeah, I don't think the big deal is the actual build line. I think it's that,
Thank you, Mr.
like you
Mayor.
said, there's been some confusion as to where structure begins.
Whether it's a drip line or it's a slab.
Right, and I think the concern is that, if you have houses that end up being 6 foot apart, if you end up with a fire in one, then, I've melted the vinyl on my house with my barbecue pit under the patio one time. So, it's not hard that if a house next door was burning, that something 6 foot away, you could catch on fire, So the deal is to create distance, but right now, the way the law's set, the distance might be as little as 6 foot. So we're trying to create that space, whether, it doesn't matter how we do it, the idea is to create the space.
Because I think the intent was 10 feet.
Yeah,
Are we looking at like an eve to eve?
Yes.
Yeah, right now, the law calls for a 25 on the front, 10 foot on the back, and 5 foot on the side setback. Well, you would think that would be eve to eve, but actually it's being enforced at slab to slab. So you end up with houses that in certain cases could be as close as 6 foot apart.
Depending on the elevation.
It all depends on what
to be
you
1 foot
define
apart.
the footprint.
And
It's the
so-
footprint with the.
Right.
But aren't they talking about structure?
Well, but
They're looking at slabs.
well, and,
Slab is not a structure.
but I understand. But if you go to the IRC, and you look at it, there is a provision in there that talks about what is a structure, and part of it is slab. Like Ascension actually at the parish level defined what is the structure, which is kind of what we're doing. And a bunch of places have done it different ways. All I'm telling you is developers are concerned that if we make the change at the permit level, then a lot of stuff in the pipeline and everything could become confused. What they would like to do is see it done at the planning level. But the amendment the addendum was already established to create a distance. And I think the intent might work out. If it doesn't work out, then we won't deal with the ordinance next 2 weeks from now, and we'll do a new introduction.
That way they don't have a bunch of empty lots out there that they are.
Yeah, here's the deal. If you've invested a ton of money in acquiring property and doing a development, you know what I'm saying, and you're through this thing through planning already, and then you get to permitting and find out everything that you've done won't work, then it's a big hassle. And so I agree. And so what we're trying to do is we're not trying to put anybody out of business. We're trying to solve a problem. And so it might be that the way to solve it is to solve it at the planning level, where we create the space we're looking for, but we do it in such a manner that we don't adversely affect the people who are trying to build stuff in our parish. So that's the intent of what we're going to do is going to stay the same. It might be we do a different level. It might be we can't do it with this addendum. With this ordinance as we're introduced, we might have to do something different. But I don't want to slow the train down until we know we can't utilize this particular deal. So I'd like to make a motion to introduce the ordinance as Standy has it done right now.
Okay. The way it is now, it's saying we're amending section 13-56 building lines to define the term structure. What other
Just
section?
introduce it as that, and if we can't amend it, if we come up with something different, a different way to do it, and this won't work, then we'll kill this and we'll start over in 2 weeks.
All right. Got a motion?
What?
Got a motion?
Make a motion. What we're doing now is we're basically to define the structure to include eaves and overhangs, patios, porches, and awnings, so that has to stay behind the building line. However, it might be that we do it at the planning stage, which would accomplish the same thing. It would just, the wording would be different. It would be done in a different section. But until somebody shows us that's the best way, we can continue to move forward with this until we figure out something different.
All right. Ms. Sandy, you ready?
Okay.
You want to add something? Is that what you?
If you introduce something and then when it comes up for public hearing and then you adopt it, everything that is amended has to be read and voted on. So if you're changing.
Well, you're going to read it by title right now. And Chris just said if we can't shoehorn the changes into this, then this is dead. But this might be the only way to do it. But they tell us there's a better way. So let's introduce this. And if we end up with a better way, then we won't even hear this next week, 2 weeks from now. Right. Table it.
This will be proposed ordinance 17-28, an ordinance to amend Article 4 of Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances of Livingston Parish Subdivision Regulations, amending Section 13-56 building lines, adding Part D to define the term structure. The public hearing will be on August the 10th at 6 p.m.
A motion by Mr. Talbert.
I'll second
by Ms. Favorite.
Okay.
Any discussion from the audience? Any discussion from the council?
We got
Sorry, go ahead.
My name's Toby Easterly. I'm 23375 LA Highway 1032, Denham Springs. Representing DSLD Homes today. We're a builder and developer in the parish. Our concern with the ordinance would be just kind of how it's implemented. I think, there are different areas that do it different ways, and we're familiar with all of those different parishes and states for that matter. We would just like to work with the council and, how to go about introducing something. We just didn't want it to affect our current inventory and projects that we already have approved. I think the planning stage would be a good stage to implement a change to something like that. But our concern would be just introducing it and it affecting everything that's currently approved or preliminary plats that are approved, but projects aren't built yet. So anything that would be introduced to planning beyond that, after the ordinance is adopted or whatever happens, we could adjust. So.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Would this help him?
And I agree with him, you know, if anything you get already ready to go, you're gonna have to waive it.
Right.
Well, I mean, the issue is at what point in time do you set up the
Right.
You know, so initially when I got the initial call, I said, well, that's fine. If something's permitted, then it'd be waived. And then you realize that when you go back and think about the time involved in developing something, you can have a ton of money invested in something in the developmental stages and it not even be approved to go by permit or be in the, you know what I'm saying? Or the subdivision could be under construction with everything already plotted out on it and not have the ability. So when you look at the broader picture of and look at from where you start to where you end and look at the impact something might have, then you gotta take a step back. And we all want to accomplish the same thing. We got to figure out the best way for implementation. And so that was after receiving some phone calls from on this stuff. I want to go ahead and get it moving forward, but at the same time, this thing might be very well might not even hit the agenda in 2 weeks. Might be tabled. You know what I'm talking about? And we're doing a different type of introduction. But until we get to that, until we know what we got to do, you know, that's where we're at.
Agreed. Sandy, would you call the vote?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Orr? Mr. Washington?
Yeah.
Mr. Graham?
Yes. I think Mr. Wiseman told me that Mr. Sawyer from Jared Graves' office is here. Come on. Sorry.
No, thank you. Appreciate y'all. Actually, I want to echo something that Mark Harrell said earlier, which is, I love you guys too. I did want to, pardon?
You had a mouthful of gator there.
I did want to, on behalf of Congressman Graves, give you just a brief update on things that we're working on that you're most likely interested in. As you can probably imagine, we're still very involved with flood recovery, as you are, as well as the parishes as well. And as you've probably noticed from a year ago or almost a year ago until today, it's the whole recovery process has gone in phases from response, which is, give me food, give me shelter, to recovery efforts, getting people into temporary housing or MHUs, and then moving into trying to reconcile flood insurance cases. We're still working on flood insurance cases. And now, believe it or not, we're working on situations where people, after waiting for so long to get into a FEMA trailer, MHU, they're having to deal with mold issues. And so we're dealing with lots of mold issues. And then FEMA, they took a good long time getting the trailers out, but they're very efficient in trying to get people out of the trailers. So that's the other thing that we're working on, is folks are not finished with their rebuilds. And so, we get calls every other day from folks saying, hey, FEMA says they're coming to take my trailer, can you help us out? So I would add that if you get any of those calls, and I'm sure you're getting them all the time, whether it's trailers or flood insurance or anything to do with recovery, please let us know. Congressman Graves will pick up the phone, and I've seen him call the administrator of FEMA on the smallest issues. So please let us know. In terms of long-term recovery, Mr. Harrell is keeping us busy. And so we're trying to address a lot of drainage issues, from the big massive projects like the Cumby River Diversion Canal to drainage throughout the parish, drainage on the southern end of the Amy River, and look, it matters to you too that we're looking at drainage improvements in Ascension Parish. They're looking at projects now that they'll probably be knocking on your door if they haven't already to talk to the parish about collaborating or at least understanding what each parish's drainage goals are. So we're that probably takes up a lot of our time right now. And then just on a high-level scale of what's going on in D.C., you've probably, beyond all the Russia activities, you've probably seen a lot of the news on healthcare reform. And so it's probably likely that the Senate is going to take what I would characterize as final action this week. They're either going to pass something or they're not. And if they don't, then I think there's still a lot of consensus on the Hill to pass some kind of health care reform. But if the Senate fails, we have no idea what that's going to look like, and we literally will go back to the drawing board. That has a huge impact on tax reform, because that was the next big item that Congress wanted to take up with the president was tax reform. And to do that, you have to move beyond health care reform, because so much of what's wound up in health care reform is taxes. So both of those have to take place. This week, we're working on appropriations funding for the Department of Defense. When we get back, probably when Congress is going to take a district work break, so Congressman Graves will be in Louisiana all of August. When they come back in September, probably the most important Louisiana item on the agenda is flood insurance reform. The current flood insurance law expires in September, and 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, Congress had essentially called a timeout on where flood insurance was headed. And flood insurance was headed in a direction where, your hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars that you spend on flood insurance are now going to go into several thousands, and maybe even in the tens of thousands. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's absolutely true. That there are homes along waterways, so it could be Lake Maurepas, could be down in St. Charles Parish, Lake des Allemands, could be anywhere where you would pay more for your insurance than you would for your mortgage, which makes it impossible for you to sell your house. So you're stuck in a house that you can't leave and you can't pay for because the insurance is unaffordable. So that law expires in September. So we're going to take that up in earnest, and Congressman Graves has made it a very, very important priority for him. One more thing I'll say about that, which is, and I think you'll appreciate this more than most in America, which is the federal disaster policy is backwards. So we put projects like the Combahee River Diversion Canal or other flood control measures, we put them on the layaway plan, or we pay very little up front, and then when the disaster hits, we pay exponentially more for recovery than we would had we just built the flood control measures in the first place. So what Congressman Graves is trying to push really hard is to flip the script on the national flood control or national disaster policy, which is let's mitigate first. Let's be proactive, and so that we're spending a little bit of money now instead of spending billions of dollars later. So with that, that's just a high-level view of what's going on. I would encourage you, please, anytime you have a question or an issue, Congressman Graves is available to you. Our office is available to you. And if you have constituents that need assistance, please send them our way. Don't let Mark Harrell be the only one keeping us busy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I need a motion.
Oh, you got
motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Ard. Need a second. Second by Mr. Lobel. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed.